It's before you know it is going to be. I don't care what you say. It's already Christmas, and many things have already happened. Just go with it.
I was gonna sing.
Oh, you were gonna sing?
Yeah.
Don't worry. Joy to the world and those good things. We will. There's always a time. Everybody's got a song. There's always time for things like that. We are continuing into this conversation this morning on our live streams. Don't forget YouTube up, Facebook, TikTok, and X. And we're looking into a food security conversation coming off the back of a climate conversation. What better marriage than that? And our guest for this hour is already seated. But before we talk about food, how about we talk a little bit about health and how you need to make sure that your health is intact, no?
Yes.
Go.
Well, there's nothing magical about health. What is magical is intent. Do you intend to be healthy? Do you intend to remain healthy? And that is something that is within your purview. The Aga Khan University Hospital has made an offer that one should consider seriously, and it's this. For 9,950 Kenyan shillings, if you go to any of the outlets, you will get a very comprehensive checkup. Ball joints, eye sockets, feet, chest, mouth, ears. You will get to know exactly how you are doing. None of these WhatsApp messages of so-and-so is in the ICU and needs God knows how much money to do God knows what. When you visit someone, there's a tube sticking out of every part of his body. None of those things. But if you get a checkup, you then get to know. If there's a problem on the way, you will know about it. And so you can deal with it. A stitch in time, saving 9 here.
Such things.
And it's something that you can do.
Okay.
If you don't have the money, look for it.
It's where?
Aga Khan University Hospital.
How much?
9,950 Kenya shillings.
Very good.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay. So let me take you to a place whereby all the information that you'll be looking at for overseas education, university education, will be in one place at one time. It's the Cradle Study Abroad World Fair. It's taking place on the 31st of August at the Gallant Mall in Parklands from 11 to 4. So I've told you when, I've told you where, I've told you what. Now, let me give you some more nitty-gritty about that. What happens is that the universities who will be showcasing from across the spectrum, from the US to Australia, New Zealand to Grenada, Cyprus to Ireland, UK to Germany, Turkey, and the UAE. Universities from all these countries will be showcasing who they are. You have an opportunity to apply on the spot. You can apply for amazing scholarships and also visa consultations because the officers will be there on ground to tell you what you need and how you go about it. It's absolutely free to attend this World Fair, but what you need to do is register online, closer to the date. So that you can be given your way through. So everything that you need, you can even apply for your accommodation once you've applied for your on-the-spot admission. So all of this available right there on the 31st of August. It's the Cradle Study Abroad World Fair. Register on www.cradle, that's CRAYDEL.com, or call 0799 000 444 and get well on your way to quality education abroad. All right, we're getting into a food security conversation, and a man with a delightful name, I really do like it, is in the studio with us today. Sieka Gatabaki is the program director at Mercy Corps, and we'll be looking at food insecurity, a threat to Kenya, and why we should embrace new farming technology. Sieka, good morning and welcome to the Situation Room.
Morning.
Great to have you here. You right now are in the hot seat of Kenya's biggest conversation, and we'll be learning from you today, and in terms of what's happening and why we need to do what we should be doing. But we're going to welcome you today to the conversation with a proverb. You hear the proverb, and we're going to give you an assignment already. You will forgive us, or you will enjoy it. I'll go with the latter. As you hear it, you tell us what it means to you and how you would interpret it. Is that okay? All right.
Our proverbs for the last 3 weeks have been from landlocked countries, and we've given our guests the pleasure of telling us one locked country that they know of. And it shouldn't be Uganda, it should not be Rwanda, it should not be Burundi.
And it must be in Africa, n'est-ce pas?
It is in Africa, and it also shouldn't be Zambia.
No,
Ethiopia. The next nearest one. The show is landlocked.
Well, I mean, through Djibouti, but it's landlocked.
It is landlocked.
To a large extent, it is.
I just want to know exactly. It is actually landlocked.
Okay.
Yes. Well, somebody asked me, okay, so if there's a lake next to it, is it landlocked? I said, yes.
Yes, it is.
Landlocked. It means it's inside the country.
And doesn't have direct access to the ocean.
No, it does not.
Voila.
That's
All right.
landlocked. So our proverbs for this week, and this is the final proverbs from landlocked countries, come from the Republic of Chad. Arrogance burnt the chief's compound. That's a proverb.
Hmm? It is at this point now.
You don't allow me 30 seconds to just brief
We do.
it
Oh, absolutely.
many directions.
Wisdom.
I mean, from a word-to-word basis, the whole idea of arrogance is basically just not being aware of yourself. Yeah? Arrogant people are people who believe they're greater than thou. Yeah? And because when you have that kind of belief, you then do not connect with your environment.
Yeah.
And you tend to create fires unnecessarily. Yeah, and so that's how the chief's house got broken down. Yeah, he was too arrogant, did not connect with his people, and did not understand what his people needed. Very, very pertinent discussion in the times that we're facing in the country, but I won't go there. We're talking about food security.
That's very interesting because we came off the back that, a chief's compound, especially in Western Africa, is a place where so many things are happening. People come with their animals, others are solving disputes, others are saying they don't want to marry this husband anymore. And those things are all happening. And if it's not met with grace, all these activities could essentially burn down. No?
Yeah.
That's great. Okay.
He said something, and I picked the word thou, and let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. That's a nice quote.
King James.
Yeah. Do you know which scripture that is, City?
Yes.
Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food.
He said yes.
It's in the Bible.
It's in the Bible.
It's somewhere.
So that's fine.
Okay. All right.
He said yes. Okay. Sieka, so, let's just get off. You work with Mercy Corps. Before we get into this insecurity, food insecurity, and where we are and what technology can do, tell us a little bit about Mercy Corps. What does it do? And when we say Corps here, it's the French word spelled C-O-R-P-S. So tell us.
Well pronounced.
Merci,
it's a challenge. Yeah, cops.
Yes, I know. Cops is a dead person, but okay.
Yeah.
Cops are also those
Cops,
people who...
cops without the R are those guys who are on the
who
wielding.
put tear gas and those ones. Yes.
But if they were...
And beat people for just walking around.
Indeed.
Those ones.
In this case, we're talking about the corps, which incidentally in French means body. So what does Mercy Corps do? How do you go about
so
this?
So Mercy Corps is an international NGO in over 40 countries around the world that is focused both on humanitarian and development work. So we really look out to support those sectors in society that do not have access to resources or are underserved in general. The program I work for in particular, which is the Mercy Corps AgriFin program, specifically looks at agriculture, the food system, and how technology can improve the lives of people who are working in the agricultural space. Now, more specifically, what we do is that we don't necessarily work directly with the farmers, but we look at solutions that are being developed by the private and public sector and work with those solutions to see how we can design, test, and scale them so that they can benefit the smallholder farmer at the end of the day.
Okay. So then, this big word that seems to slap us in the face, food insecurity, we hear it and we think, oh my God, the food on the planet is diminishing, dwindling. We're not going to be able to feed. What does food insecurity mean from this perspective?
Yeah, food insecurity, it's a big challenge. We are growing, we're at over 8 billion people. And there's not enough food production, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. Productivity and yield rates have been really declining over the years. And there's not enough production to really sustain individuals and this kind of growth rate that's happening in the world right now. On top of that, of course, you are just in a conversation on climate. We're seeing adverse weather events happening, and this is also reducing our capacities to actually have adequate food for the people, to serve people in countries. Then beyond that, some of the structural issues that exist is that smallholder farming is quite an inefficient way to create food, or rather, it lacks the resources, the structures, the formality that would allow it to produce food at a scale capable of reaching and feeding the world as we know it today. Many of the smallholder farmers are still, to a large extent, subsistence, so they don't even produce enough to get out of the farmhold into the market. So we're having challenges like that. So how you then move this whole mass of smallholder farmers in Kenya? It's about 60% of farming is about smallholder farming. How do you move this mass of people to actually then produce at a better yield rate, so that then you can feed your food basket?
You've actually asked one of the most pertinent questions that never seem to be responded to adequately. There are all these people, they're predominantly agrarian, they farm, mostly subsistence for themselves, and with time, even that for themselves has diminished. But then there's the other thing is, beyond having food, how do they also get money into their pockets? So then how do you get this unit to work and to work effectively? Would you say that at the end of this discussion, we are going to come up, you're going to tell us how it is that this thing can work? Because I'm going to tell me whether we should continue this discussion or not.
For the last 8 years, we're answering that question. I think we've made headways, and it's not just us. Many organizations have made some headways. And there's some clues to the answer in terms of how we can actually go about improving the food system.
Okay, so let me ask the question.
Yeah.
You've had processes. I may have probably preempted what you're about to say. Forgive me. But what are the variables that you've included in your discussions? And what are the key individuals, groupings that you have included in your discussions? What entities have included in these discussions? And the findings that you say have come up, are they the sort of findings that ordinarily generally has consensus? Because consensus is very key in the process of accepting a process, and accepting is how it is we move forward in implementing whatever it is we're saying.
Yeah, I think there is consensus around the fact that, number one, value chains that are unstructured, food value chains that are unstructured, need to be structured a lot better. Way back, maybe 10, 20 years ago, there was a big movement around building cooperatives across value chains. That was a way of really structuring the value chain so that you can get the right services to the farmers, and the farmers can access their inputs, markets, etc., and get better returns on their agricultural work. So one of the answers is there, that we need to structure the food system a lot better. Whether those investments are happening now in the right way, that's left to chance. I mean, when I was coming here, I used the expressway. The expressway has cut the time to come to Mombasa Road by 10 minutes. I was coming from ABC Place. If I was using the old traditional route, I would have taken an hour or two, etc. It's a whole preparation, a whole challenge that you're facing just to get here. So by creating a structure like the expressway, you create efficiencies in a system, and that's just in the logistics system. So in agriculture, similar structures need to be put in place. So there are similar barriers that are affecting smallholder farmer that need to be removed. And then there are opportunities. And the opportunities that we are working on are the digital technology opportunities, whereby if you don't have the opportunity to create a formal cooperative, you can actually create a digital collection of people. It's just about aggregation. So there are new ways of aggregating farm produce. There are new ways of aggregating knowledge, so that you don't necessarily need to have a 1-to-1 ratio or 1-to-100 ratio of trainers, farmer extension services to every farmer. You can actually do this digitally, because most farmers will then have a phone. So then how do you transverse that sector of the market is probably what we're looking at. And those, like I said, we have some answers, but I think we're just really at the end of the beginning of the journey.
All right, I want to ask something that I think is also very vital, and I believe it's one of your objectives. That is, and it's one thing to produce, and it's another to actually have that produce give back to you. And I think it's very vital to connect buyers and, of course, sellers. And I want to understand what you do in as far as creating that power to these parties to actually, have a flourishing economy working for them. Because it's very beautiful to hear that, you put all these people together, but when it actually comes to the action of this seller, this buyer connecting and creating that flourishing economy, how are you going about it this far?
Okay. So as I mentioned, we work as a facilitator in the food system. So we identify promising technologies, promising companies that are developing solutions to tackle some of these problems like market access. And what we do with these partners is that we work with them to identify where the key challenges they're facing in terms of deploying their solutions. Is it a technological challenge in terms of the way they've designed their platforms? Is it something in relation to how their platforms interact with the end users, which would in one case be the farmers and the other side would be the sellers. And then we help them through a design process, working with different researchers using processes like human-centered design, pharmacentric research, to really identify what are some of those pain points, how can we design the solution to work better for, say, for example, a lot of the farming community are less educated, so you need to then design for that. How do you make sure that they can access it, they can actually utilize what you're providing them? It could be that. It could be also that there's an issue around how finance is circulating within the ecosystem. So then how do you then create partnerships between these market access players and the financial service providers? So there are various ways that we look at the market, and there's not one specific buyer. We try and tackle as many as possible, with the scope and the boundary being that our main focus is looking at how digital and how do we advance digital as one specific area. And it's not the one solve-all bullet, but it is a place that needs to be looked at.
How then do you combine that technology? Because here it is. I mean, that's the crux of the matter here is, all right, so here we are entering into the digital age. Some would say, other nations have been in that space for a while. But, Kenya's on this part of the world, getting into that proper. How then do you leverage the digital technology that's available to solve an agricultural problem, which is perennial? How is Mercy Corps doing that, and how can it be seen?
So we run an accelerator where we identify who are those technology players. There were companies like Twiga Foods, Koamana. There are quite a number of them in the market. And many of them, the main challenge that they faced is that they've reached a certain level of farmers that they're able to serve, and they want to grow beyond that point. So we help them identify what are the key things they'll need to do to actually make their solutions reach many more farmers more effectively and really deliver at a price point that is suitable for that specific market. So those are a couple of the things that we do. And we work across multiple areas in the sector. So we look at market access is one of them. That's an important thing. Access to financial services, that's critical. We all know that to a large extent, smallholder farmers still do not have access to enough financial services that could help them grow beyond what they're farming now to explore their whole piece of land, whether it's 1-2 acres, and really farm across all that. We also look at their education, so information services. So how do you get them access to good agricultural practice information? How do you get them agronomic advice? And then how do you get them climate smart information so that they are up to date in terms of how they would actually manage their farms moving forward? I think you were speaking about your mom scratching her back.
You watched that.
Those are the traditional ways of knowing. Grandmother. Yeah, those are the traditional ways. And it's actually quite interesting when we go into the field and you talk to farmers and they say the same thing, like we used to know when it's going to rain. We used to know, but it's changing. And said right now we don't know. We don't know, and we need reliable sources of information that can let us know. Yeah, and one of the things is that everyone is really trying to be an innovator. So sometimes some of the solutions that are being presented to these farmers are not working. Yeah, so we try and vet, test, see, okay, how do we make sure that what you're saying has gone through the rigor to make sure that it is actually a valuable solution that can really help the smallholder farmers.
Let me combine two questions into one.
Sure.
Since you work with the communities, you are clearly aware of how it is they go about their business. And what you've just said points to it. They tell you that's how you know. Now there's technology. One, how do you get whatever it is that has worked for them in the past? How do you usher it into this age that we are now in, the communication age, the technological age? And how do you ensure that that technology is acceptable to them? Its applicability is really not the issue. The technology may be very applicable and it will work. The acceptability factor is what. How do you go about this?
There's always a process of adoption. In terms of identifying how technology can really get diffused into a community. There's a great sociological book on diffusions of innovations, and there's a research that was done in the US around how in the agricultural sector technology has been adopted, and it came up with the famous bell curve with the early adopters, early majority, late majority, laggards, etc., and give you some ideologies around that. So we take similar approaches, really identifying what are the key determinants in a particular community in terms of how that technology will be adopted. We look at things like positive deviance, and that's the idea around where there are individuals who are more ahead of the community in terms of identifying new ways of doing things. And those individuals will leverage their thinking and build on that to really deploy your solutions. But as I mentioned, we're working with entrepreneurs, and I think the powerful thing about good entrepreneurs is that they go in to identify a problem and come up with a solution for it, rather than come up with a solution and look for the problems everywhere. And so we try and look for those entrepreneurs that are actually truly looking at what are the problems that their communities they're working with are facing. I'll give you one such example. There's one of them that was a vet in one of the counties. And she went around seeing how a lot of the dairy farmers were struggling to manage their cows, etc. And she came up with a way of managing the records of the cow, etc. How to then better give the right information to the farmer so that their cow can produce more milk. But in her journey towards discovering how to manage those records, she also saw that, look here, these farmers are also having challenges accessing finance. But now that I've digitized this asset in a particular way, we know its health, etc., she was able to then attract different financial service providers, insurance providers who said, okay, fine, we'll insure the cow because now we know where it is, we know its health status, etc. Financial providers say, okay, yes, we can give you an input loan to purchase whatever you need to sustain the cow, etc. So those are the entrepreneurs we try and foster. Those are kind of the breakaway cases that we're looking at that can really be scaled and provide a lot of opportunities for many farmers writ large.
Interesting, and I think that's important to be able to then draw parallels between, the technology and the idea and the physical manifestation of these things happening, and we'll come and look more into some of those. Let's take a break at this point. Siaka Gatabaki is the programs director at Mercy Corps, and we're looking at food insecurity and how we can leverage technology to ensure that populations essentially are fed and fed well, isn't it? All right, 28 minutes to 9 o'clock. The conversation continues after this.